So I wanted to talk you through the ACSM guidelines for flexibility, along with some other kind of experts in the field of flexibility. ACSM is probably the most respected health and fitness organisation in the world. It is the American College of Sports Medicine, and they have what they call FIT principles. So they look at the frequency, intensity, time and type. So I wanted to go through their guidelines so that you can kind of be like, okay, that's what like a pretty much the most well-respected organisation for health and fitness in the world suggests. So I thought I'll definitely mention them. Okay, so they suggest that the frequency, so how often it should be done, is 2 to 3 days per week for your general fitness. However, for greater gains in flexibility, you want to perform stretches daily. The intensity, they say how hard should it be, hold stretches to a point of slight discomfort for maximum benefit. P&F stretches should use a contraction intensity of around 25 to 75% of the perceived maximum before relaxing and moving further into the stretch. Time, so how long should it be done for? For most individuals, around 10 minutes in total is adequate. Those wanting more flexibility will need longer. Stretches should be done when muscles are warm, after an exercise session being the perfect time. Stretches held for 10 to 30 seconds appear to have as big an effect on flexibility as those held for longer. Older people, so 50 plus, although I would argue 50 is perhaps not old, but my preference. Older people, that I'm just reading like for like what they've quoted. So older people may benefit more from stretches held for 30 to 60 seconds. Repeat each stretch 2 to 4 times, aiming to total 60 seconds of stretching per muscle in total. This may be done through 4 times 15 seconds or 2 times 30 seconds. P&F stretches should use a contraction period of 3 to 6 seconds, followed by 10 to 30 seconds held in the new position. And then type. So for the general population, focus on the major muscles of the body, including those around the shoulder girdle, chest, neck, trunk, lower back, hips, posterior and anterior legs, and ankles. Dynamic stretches may be most appropriate for sports people in warm-up due to the decreases in strength and power seen in static stretches used before exercise. After exercise, static or P&F stretching should be used if the goal is to increase flexibility. P&F may be the most effective, but the practicalities of having experienced partners to assist the stretch may be difficult to use this stretch type. Okay, so that's like exactly what they've said. So this is one of my, when I was doing my studies, I've just lifted it straight from there in one of my textbooks. So you've got it pretty much exactly, exactly what they've put as their guidelines. However, there are other people who will suggest other things. So I wanted to pull out some other experts and let you know what they've said as well. So there's a guy called Michael Alters. So Michael Alters is a highly experienced former gymnast and gymnastics coach, and he's written a number of books on flexibility. And he says to stretch daily or once or twice a day. Long duration stretches are the most effective for increased flexibility. So obviously he's said a lot more than that, but I've kind of summed it up as what his kind of viewpoint is. I've also pulled out Dan Rosen's perspective. So Dan Rosen, the pole champion legend, he says that it's really important to listen to your body, and if it doesn't feel safe or right, or if it doesn't feel right, then don't do it. He stretches every other day, and he prefers for a longer duration stretch, so to stretch for an hour or 2 hours every other day. But he acknowledges that other people might prefer to do little and often. And he also makes a point that it's not a race. There's a guy called Tim Sanders. Tim Sanders is a former GB international gymnast, and he's an acrobat for Cirque du Soleil and Dracone. So he recommends he swears by foam rolling. So he rollers for approximately 40 minutes per training day. So that's kind of like his big advocacy is all about the foam rollers and ball rollers and sticks. So he rolls for 20 minutes at the beginning of a warm-up and 20 minutes at the end of a cool-down. He has 6-hour training days or shows each day. So this length might not be, so he said this length might not be necessary for all people because people wouldn't necessarily use their bodies as much as doing 6 hours per day. And he says, I recommend at least 5 minutes at the beginning and the end of each session. Now, he says that he uses the foam rollers before a warm-up. Now, other people have argued that they shouldn't be used before, but instead used once the muscle is warm. I personally prefer to use them when my muscles are warm and then use the foam roller. So if I was going to use it at the start and end, I'd use it once I've warmed up and then I would foam roll. Or, which is probably when I use it most, I would use it post my cool down. So I've done my session and then I've cooled myself down and then I'll have a roll. So I personally disagree with the use of foam rollers at the beginning of a session, but this is what Tim swears by, so you can have a little play with that. So I've kind of thought about what my preference is. So for me, I would do maintenance stretching daily. I love a maintenance stretch. I love a morning stretch to start my day. But I would only do it maintenance, so nothing intense or strenuous. I wouldn't do that every day. So maintenance stretching, happy to do that every day, but developmental stretching, I'll do that 3 to 4 times a week, but listening to my body. I'm always listening to whether I've got DOMS, so whether my muscles have got a delayed onset muscle soreness, then I would ease off and I would only do, if I'm experiencing DOMS either from stretching or from my training session, then I will do gentler maintenance stretches and maybe I'll just do a warm-up, and I might do some foam rolling if I've got DOMS. Foam rolling is great for DOMS, so I'd normally use that to help with getting that movement coming back into the muscles, but I wouldn't do an intense stretch on my muscles when they ache already. And then what have I said here? So on days of developmental, on days that I do developmental stretching, earlier in the day, I will do a maintenance stretch. So on Tuesdays, when we do our flexibility session, earlier in the day, I have the gentle movement and gentle stretch, afternoon stretch session at 12 o'clock. So I'll do some gentle stretching earlier in the day, and that will improve my flexibility later in the day when I go to do my more intense developmental stretching. Yeah, I sometimes will stretch more than once a day. But yeah, my general rule is maintenance stretch every day of the week because it feels so good. And developmental stretching, depending on how much of a improvement you want to see, but 3 to 4 times a week would be my preference. However, there are other people who will suggest to do it every day. Some people suggest do it twice a day. But they are also training for different things. So I hope that kind of helps give you an overall idea of what makes the best information for you so that you can find what feels right for your body. I also wanted to do top tips. So here are my top tips on flexibility training. So exhale when you move, when moving into a stretch. So basically when you exhale, it decreases your muscle spindle response. It lowers your heart rate and your blood pressure, and it increases the amount of stretch possible in the muscle. So use your breath and exhalation to help get more out of your stretches. Stay hydrated. Dehydrated muscles don't stretch so well. Imagine like a little wrinkly raisin or prune. It's dried out and it will not stretch as much. Whereas if you've got a much more hydrated muscle, then it will stretch more. So keep hydrated. Always listen to your body. So your body will try and tell you the best possible way when it's not happy or when it doesn't want to do something. So listen and respect your body and know that it's not a race. So that's my my final point, was that flexibility and permanent muscle change can take time. It can take years. So feel free to put your all into it and enjoy the journey, but know that it's it might take a while for you to actually, there's no shortcut or magic pill. It can take time, it can take years, and it will probably take years to make a permanent change. But you can enjoy short-term benefits with the PNF stretching, but to see long-term results, you need to be doing it often and consistently for you to have permanent long-term results. The other thing that I was just going to mention as a final point is when you choose to do your stretching. So when you go to sleep at night, your spine fills with fluid. So in the morning, your spine will not be as flexible, and nor will your muscles. So as a general rule, you'll find better flexibility later in the day. There's actually it's well documented of 2 times in the day where you find that you have best stretching, and I can't for the life of me remember where I saw this. I was reading it in my textbook and I thought, oh, I'd forgotten about that, but I thought it was fascinating. It is, I want to say, 11 o'clock in the morning and sometime in the afternoon. I will find it, 2 seconds, because I want to tell you this because it's actually quite interesting. Oh, here we go. Unit 3. Ba, 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 ba. I just thought it was so interesting that we have special times in the day that are supposed to be best for stretching. Oh, here we go. So you may feel that you're a morning person or that you come to life at night. The daily fluctuations, how we feel, blah, 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 blah. We tend to be least flexible in the hours immediately after waking up, and that's because of the fluid in your spine. We generally become more flexible across the day, with 10 till 11 and 4 till 5 cited as possibly our most supple. So there you go. 10 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon are cited to be most flexible. I mean, to be honest, if you were really, I would just go with when you're free, but you don't want to be doing it first thing in the morning, and certainly not doing intense stretching first thing in the morning, because you want the fluid around your spine to loosen up. I hope you have found this really helpful. I know it was a lot of information, but yes, I hope you find it really helpful and a better way for you to understand how your body works in relation to flexibility so that you can get the most out of it. Lots of love. Bye.